He was 65 years old. His restaurant had just shut down. His only income was a Social Security check for $105 a month. He had a car, a pressure cooker, and a chicken recipe. And he decided this was not the end. This is the real story of how KFC began. Harland Sanders was born in 1890 in Henryville, Indiana. When he was 6 years old, his father died. His mother had no choice but to work long shifts at a factory, leaving young Harland to take care of his younger siblings at home. By the time he was 7, he had already learned to cook full meals. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. At 10 years old, he got his first job feeding animals on a nearby farm. From that point forward, he never stopped working. Over the next several decades, he worked as a steam engine stoker, a farmhand, a streetcar conductor, an insurance salesman, a ferry boat operator, and a tire salesman. He tried law and got into a physical fight with his own client in the courtroom and lost his license. He tried a ferry boat company, sold it too early and made almost nothing. He tried selling tires during the Great Depression, the economy collapsed and took everything with it. By his 40s, Harland Sanders had failed at almost everything he had ever tried. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't unintelligent. He was just a man living through one of the hardest economic periods in American history, with no safety net and no backup plan. Then in the 1930s, he started running a small gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. And because travelers kept stopping and asking if there was food nearby, he set up a small table inside his own living quarters and started cooking for them. 6 seats. Home-cooked Southern food. Word started spreading. By the late 1930s, he had turned the gas station into a proper restaurant and motel, Sanders Court and Cafe, with 142 seats. And he had been quietly working on something for years. A fried chicken recipe. He experimented with a pressure cooker, which nobody was using for fried chicken at the time. Traditional frying was too slow for a restaurant. The pressure cooker made it faster, crispier, and more flavorful. After hundreds of attempts, he locked in what he called his secret blend, 11 herbs and spices. That recipe has never been made public. To this day, it sits locked in a vault. In 1936, the governor of Kentucky gave him an honorary title, Kentucky Colonel, for his contribution to the state's cuisine. From that point forward, he wore the title like a uniform. White suit. String tie. The Colonel. Then everything fell apart. Again. In 1939, a fire burned his restaurant to the ground. He rebuilt. Then World War II hit and forced him to shut down during the war years. He reopened afterward and built the business back up a second time. Then in the early 1950s, the government announced a new highway, Interstate 75, that would completely bypass Corbin. The traffic that kept his restaurant alive simply stopped coming. By 1955, at 65 years old, Sanders was forced to shut down and sell the property at a loss. He was left with his car, his pressure cooker, his spice blend, and $105 a month from Social Security. Most men his age were retiring. Sanders got in his car and started driving. His plan was simple. He would go to restaurants across America, walk into the kitchen, cook his chicken for the staff and the owner, and if they liked it, he would offer them a deal. They could serve his recipe under his name in exchange for just 4 cents for every piece of chicken sold. No upfront cost. No franchise fee. Just 4 cents a piece. He was rejected over 1,000 times. He slept in the back of his car. He drove from state to state. Restaurant owners told him he was too old. They told him nobody would pay for his chicken. Some didn't even let him finish cooking. He kept going. Then in 1952, years before he lost his restaurant, he had already signed his very first franchise deal with Pete Harmon, a restaurant owner in Salt Lake City, Utah. Harmon tried the recipe. His sales tripled. It was Harmon who first used the name Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it was that one success that Sanders kept pointing to as he knocked on door after door across the country. Slowly, restaurants started saying yes. One here. Two there. Each new location proved the recipe worked. By 1963, just 8 years after he had been forced to shut down with $105 to his name, there were over 600 KFC franchise locations across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Mexico, and Australia. In 1964, at 73 years old, Sanders sold the Kentucky Fried Chicken Corporation for $2 million. He stayed on as the brand ambassador, the face of KFC, traveling the world, visiting restaurants, greeting customers in his white suit.
But the story doesn't end there. As the new owners expanded KFC, they began cutting costs. They changed the gravy recipe. They changed the cooking process. Sanders visited restaurants unannounced and tasted the food. He was furious. He publicly called their gravy goddamn slop with a wallpaper taste. He sued the company for misusing his image to sell food he hadn't approved. The company sued him back for libel. He opened his own competing restaurant with his wife, serving his original recipe. The man they put on the logo was fighting the company that owned the logo. He lost most of those legal battles. But he never stopped speaking his mind. Harland Sanders died in 1980 at the age of 90. He was buried in his white suit and black tie. At the time of his death, KFC was operating in 48 countries with approximately $2 billion in annual sales. Today KFC has over 27,000 locations in more than 145 countries. It is the second largest restaurant chain on the planet. And the man on every single bucket, the man with the white hair, the glasses, and the string tie, started all of it at 65, with $105 a month and a car he slept in. That's the real story. No extra drama. Just what actually happened. If you want to know how the world's biggest names really began, this is the channel. Next up, a man who sold shoes out of the trunk of his car at track meets and went on to build the most recognized sportswear brand on earth.